Good day once again. So welcome to our next lecture, which is the continuation of our discussion in listening. Okay, so last meeting we discussed the different types of listening. That's why just as there are different types of listening, such as discriminative, informational, critical, and emphatic listening. So those are the four kinds of listening. So there are also different styles of listening. So let's try to dig into that and let's try to find out what are these different styles of listening. So for our next lesson, just like what we mentioned to you a while ago, we'll be discussing about the different types of listening or types of listeners. So there are different types of listeners. There are people-oriented, action-oriented, content-oriented, and time-oriented. So let's try to differentiate these four types of listeners. So people-oriented listeners. So this kind of listeners are concerned about the emotional states of others and listen with the purpose of offering support in interpersonal relationships. So these are the people that right after they listen to you, they would give you some pieces of advice. Because again, they are people oriented. So people oriented listeners can be characterized as supporters who are caring and understanding. So just similar with your friends that right after you talk to them, they would give you some advice on what to do. Usually kapag diba, if you're broken hearted, they will be giving you advices about what to do and what not to do. Sila yung sasabi at magsusul sa'yo na iwanan mo na yan. Something like that. Okay? So these are people who are concerned with your emotion. That what they're trying to do is just for you to alleviate the sadness that you're feeling. Okay, they are also concerned with what you feel about something. Okay, they are known as people who will lend an ear because they would like to listen to you. And well, action-oriented listeners, so they are focused on what action needs to take place in regards to a received message. Let's say right after they heard or listened to what you're saying, then they would give you what supposed action that has to be done. Let's say, for example, you are part of a student organization, then some of the members of the organization would raise a problem with regard to, let's say, doing an activity, the pro concerns in preparation about activities, and then right after you listen to their concerns about the preparation of that certain activity, you would give suggestions on what to do in order for you to solve that problem. So that's what we call an action-oriented listener. So they try to formulate an organized way to initiate that action. Okay, these listeners are frustrated by this organization because it at least detracts from the possibility of actually doing something. So they would as much as possible, they are avoiding to to be disorganized on the things. They would like to see that that are the things that you have to do, and in order for you to avoid the problems. That is why this action-oriented listener would evaluate the situation based on the things that he or she listened to based on what others had shared. Just like the example that I had given to you a while ago about the student organization that is facing a problem about the preparation of the activities. So in order for them to solve that problem, as a leader, you listen to the people around you and then you would give a sound judgment and a sound action that is feasible to do in order for you to avoid the problem that are raised during the meeting, for example. So being this kind of listener is effective when a task needs to be completed under time, budgetary, or other logistical constraints. Then we have content oriented. So when we talk of content oriented listener, they like to listen to complex information and evaluate the content of a message, often from multiple perspectives before drawing conclusions. Okay, ito yung mga matitinik na critical listeners kung tawagin natin. They are into a critical type of listening. So these listeners can be thought of as listeners. And they also ask questions to solicit more information to fill out their understanding of an issue. Okay? May pagka-content or may pagka-action oriented. Pero at some point, before he or she proceeds to an action, there is a need for the content-oriented type of listener to analyze the situation by soliciting information from others. They enjoy high perceived credibility because of their thorough, balanced, and objective approach to engaging with information. They are likely skilled information and critical listeners and may find success in academic careers. So there are some people who are time-oriented listeners. They are more concerned about time limits and timeliness than they are with the content or standards of a message. So right after they listen about something, they need to put in total right away to put an action to it. So these listeners can be thought of as executives. Why? Because they tend to actually verbalize the time constraints under which they are operating. Parang halimbawa, we need to do this, we need to do that because we're under time. We have to comply with this. So right after you get all the information needed from the people whom you're talking with, then he or she is concerned with the time that it has to be implemented right away. So let's try to identify the different types of listeners based on the following situations. Okay, so let's have the first one. The business manager listens carefully to the problems cited by his people before making a decision. So this is an example of action-oriented listener. Okay. Then pangalawa, an example of people-oriented listener. A school counselor gives pieces of advice to a student who is experiencing depression. Next, for time-oriented listener, a boss just entered this office and asked to talk. Sure, I can talk, but I only have about 5 minutes. Kumbaga, I can listen to you for only just a certain time. Okay, so there are people like that. They are time-oriented listener. Okay, just tell me in a short while about the things that you would like to tell me. So these are time-oriented listener. Or a student is listening attentively to the discussion to pass his examination. So that is a content-oriented listener. Okay, so again, you've filled in your learning bean with Sir Batch. So thank you very much for your time in listening to our lecture discussion.